So continuing the story that we already were working on before. Anybody, by the way, didn't come to the first session here, second session? Same, right? Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. So we talked quite a bit about, of course, InfoPath and talking about InfoPath list form, InfoPath library form. Now we're going to go further, talk about workflows. But before we do that, just to recap, we did cascading dropdowns, and if somebody wanted to see that again, I can also show that to you again if you wanted to see how that is figured out. Current username was auto-populated in one of the forms, content type wrapped form we made. We did conditional formatting. Well, this actually we just did for disabling the today's date control, right? And then validation, we did that as well. Onboarding form library. Yeah, before I move on to the next one, which is processing the form, let me do one more thing. Give you a taste of what's coming up a little bit later also in reporting of this from this system. So once you have, now this is not it, once you have your site right here, once you have your form library, I should say, the onboarding forms library here, you might want to make this look prettier. You want to change this around a little bit, right? And the way you change the look and feel of anything, of any library or list, is by changing the view. Simple enough. You change the view or you create a new view, etc. Now there are two different ways of making that happen. The first one is by going to the library saying modify the view. And then you got all this stuff over here. Changing name, changing columns, sorting, filtering, etc. There are some limitations in what you can do over here. For example, you can't sort on more than 2 columns here. The styles are limited the way it is. You do have some good stuff like shaded and stuff like that, which I'll go ahead and do that right now. But still, there's limitation on what you can do. There's just predefined things that you can do. You can't do anything further. So what can you do further if you want to make additional changes? I can't even see the shading in here, but it's there. Sorry? Do in SharePoint Designer, right? And I'm just going to give you a quick taste, if you've done it, this is nothing. If you've not done it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Listen libraries, onboarding forms library. We, in the beginning, made a new form for a list. Now we're talking about views, 2 different things, right? Views are to actually see the data, display the data anywhere you want. Forms is to be able to manipulate the data or edit the data or the display in a form, basically. Within a view, let's go ahead and make a quick new view. Onboarding form. Go inside of it. So when I make a new view, it uses a web part automatically called the XSLT list view web part, right? The XSLT list view web part, which is used to show lists and libraries within it. And that's this guy right here. If you really wanted to dig deeper inside, you click on split, and it shows you exactly how it's being rendered, all the different parameter bindings and everything else. But we're not going to focus on code right now. It's a no-code session, of course. So the cool thing about this view, and I'll do more later, like I said, the end of this presentation, but right now I just want to give you some perspective as to this is a repeater control, the data repeater control, really. Whatever you do to one data point, it happens to the whole column. Whatever you do over here is going to do to the whole column, right? So if I make this bold, it's going to make all this stuff bold. If I go here and say, you know what, I don't really care for this time, I just need this date, you can go ahead and rip that off. If you want, and you want to go ahead and change some of these headings, you can go ahead and change that stuff as well, right there. Now these things seem simple enough, like yeah, of course it's right there, I can do that. But it wasn't as simple in the last version, in the 2007 version of SharePoint. You couldn't do all these things, okay? So yeah, if I go here, just to do one thing, I'm going to take that, make it bold, maybe change the color as well to something else. Good old purple, why not? Or whatever, or pink, whatever it is. Save. Don't forget the save button. Always save your changes. of course, I didn't touch anything here because that's the all documents view, but when I go into the onboarding form view, that should have my changes. And there we go, right? Simple enough. And that's just a start. You can do a lot more going off of this type of functionality, list view web part modification functionality using SharePoint Designer. We got our onboarding forms library ready. What is the next thing we're going to do? We talked about this right before the presentation ended last, right? The main thing now, after somebody has submitted the form, is the actual workflow, right? The process that has to take place for it to put it into use, to do something with it. They also talk about some tips and tricks in there as well. Okay, here we go. Okay, so processing the onboarding form. The new team member's team lead must be notified. That's the first thing. Automatically, we need to understand who the team lead is. Now, we're assuming that the information is in Active Directory. That assumption is not always true in many environments, unfortunately. But we're assuming in this case that the information is in Active Directory. Active Directory is nice and pristine. It's got people, it's got their managers, it's got who they're leading, it's got their, all the other information about them. Okay, depending on the person's department, also, they need to be issued certain work-related items, like a laptop or a desktop, or if they're in human resources, they need to be given human resources manual or things like that, right? So that's the kind of stuff we need to do. Yeah, okay. That's it for that. Let's go ahead and dig inside of it now. So I want to make a workflow. Actually, there's many different ways to make a workflow in SharePoint as far as SharePoint is concerned, but at the end of the day, you have to remember that workflows specifically act on content. In fact, if you look at the whole developer, not roadmap, but developer slide basically that Microsoft produces to show exactly what developers can do, where they can do it in terms of the presentation layer, the middle tier layer, and the data layer, workflows always go into this content box. It's always in the content box because they're saying that content is what workflow is focused on within SharePoint. Now, you can use other workflow tools outside, other vendors, I'm sure you'll find, that will let you do SharePoint and other processes. So if you have SAP, if you have Lotus Notes still running, which I'm not sure why, but it could be. But if you have that kind of stuff, you can go ahead and take that information and then pull things from different resources and do your process, complete business process management. We're just talking about SharePoint specifically, right? So we got out of the box SharePoint workflow templates. That's one thing. You got SharePoint Designer workflow templates, SharePoint Designer specific templates, or we can make just instance of the workflows. You can also make workflows in Visual Studio, which, by the way, changes drastically of how you make Visual Studio workflows in 2010 as opposed to 2013. So please be mindful of that because, it's going completely declarative instead of code in 2013. We're, of course, going to focus on the no-code basis of it. There's one other way that you can make workflows. You can't really make workflows, I shouldn't say that, but you can model workflows. And that is good old Visio, right? How many people have used Visio before? Okay, so a total of 6 people. All right. I guess Visio is not that popular. All programs, Microsoft Office. So which version of it? There's 3 different versions, right? Microsoft Visio 2010. Sorry, say again? I like the way you put it. I didn't say it, you said it. But you said that if you need to make SharePoint-specific workflows, you need the most expensive one. That's true. In 2010, that's true. 2013, things changed. Thank God. Lots of feedback was provided back to Microsoft that, hey, what's going on over here? It is true that I am using Visio 2010 Premium. Visio 2010 Premium, the last time I checked on Amazon, I think it was going for $995. It doesn't come with any Office suites, so you must purchase it separately. If you're purchasing it only for SharePoint workflows, it doesn't buy you too much. The one really good thing about, even in 2010, and 2013, like I said, things get a lot better, but in 2010, one really good thing is you can really visualize your existing workflows, or you can have a business analyst make new workflows using Visio and then take it into SharePoint Designer, right? Being able to visualize those things really do account for a lot. So anyway, here's what you do. I'm going to go into flowchart, and there's the Microsoft SharePoint workflow template right here. Click on Create. Now, here's my start and terminate object. So I'll take start, put that here. Take terminate, put that here. It's a sequential workflow. All SharePoint workflows made this way are sequential, of course, in here, and SharePoint Designer also. Once again, in SharePoint Designer 2013, things change, which we will. I do hope to talk about 2013 stuff at the end of this session. But right now, we're sticking to 2010. So, yeah. So you got terminators, start and stop. I'm going to go to actions. And the first thing I'll do, what am I doing first? Yeah, first thing I'm going to do is say send an email. Send an email to somebody. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Make this a little bit smaller. All right. Second thing, I'm going to go to workflow conditions, which I believe is that, and say compare a document field. That is correct. Is there one? Yeah, I think that's good. And I'll be changing this around a little bit more, but that's fine for right now. Then I'll go ahead and say in actions, assign a to-do item. That's right. Assign a to-do item here. And then we'll put in, if you're wondering that if you do have the same objects in here as you do in SharePoint Designer, that is true. You do have the same objects for conditions for actions that you do in SharePoint Designer as well. And if you have not played around with SharePoint Designer workflows yet, no worries, we'll get there. We will get there because you can't do everything here. You have to go to SharePoint Designer to finish this stuff up. Okay, and I'm going to actually take all this stuff and move it up a little bit. Actually, it won't really matter right now. Never mind. Okay. All right. Let's see. So this is good. Some connectors. I'll go to connector over here and then connect these things together. Connect, connect. That and like this. So what we're saying is if this condition, whatever it is not true, go one way, and if it is true, go the other way, right? So I'm going to right-click on this one and say this is my yes branch. Right-click on this and say this is my no branch. If this condition is true, go this way. If it's false, go that way. What are those conditions? What is going on here? Well, here's what's going on. So I need to, first of all, send an email to somebody after some event happens, and in our case, the event being the form is submitted. The email is going to be to the person's manager. Email person or employees manager. Compare document field. The document field that we're going to compare is check if department is IT. IT. Assign a to-do item. That's going to be to the person who is a resource manager for the department. Assign resource manager to deploy resources, of course. Okay, now we're talking about IT right now. So IT folks, in our case, in our example, get a laptop and they get a desktop. They get both because they need both with what they need to do. So create new asset item. And this one's going to be desktop. Let me just copy this information so I can use it again, or copy this portion of it. Create list item, laptop. All right, so far so good. Easy enough to understand, right? Create new an asset item. What I mean over here is there's going to be an assets list where it aggregates all the different assets which are being given to employees, right? We need to track that information and then report on that as well. Let's see if I missed anything. Process, check diagram, no issues, great. Export. So this itself is a drawing. That's what Microsoft Visio drawings are called. They're called drawing, of course. Is this, if I save this, would be .vsd, Visio drawing. But that's not what I want to do. Because I have premium, because I can actually export this thing as a VWI file. Visio workflow interchange, VWI. That is understood by SharePoint Designer and it is understood by Visio. And you can go back and forth between those things. And it's actually pretty imperative to do that stuff, especially when you have a different person who is modeling this thing, or who is looking at this thing once you've designed it in SharePoint Designer, right? So if you do need to go back and give some feedback, how are you going to do that? You save it, you export it, and you go there. And then you say, oh, well, I need to have this changed, and you export it from there, and you go back here, etc. So here's how this works out. Export. We'll put it into the C drive. And we're going to call this, just so I remember which one it is, evolutions. Okay. Let's verify it got put there. C evolutions.vwi. It's actually a cab file, a cabinet file. So if you did get curious as to what is in this file, you can actually change this temporarily to .cab. Double click on it, open it up. You will see the manifest in there. You will see the actual rules, the way they're defined. You'll see the drawing. You'll see everything within that for the workflow. Okay, so I am done with this thing. Let me go ahead, go to SharePoint Designer, evolutions, go to workflows. So now instead of making it from scratch, I'm going to click on import from Visio, and then click on browse, go to C drive, and import this in, evolutions.vwi. That's correct. I'll keep the workflow name as evolutions. Well, actually, no, it doesn't make sense in here. Onboarding process. Okay, so just so we know which one it is, we're going to call it that. Generally, probably for your users, you might not want to call it that because they were like, what is onboarding process? You want to make it something that's understood by them. But that's a workflow. You can make it a list workflow or a reusable workflow. We're going to make it a list workflow because we want to attach it directly to the onboarding forms library. And that's correct so far. Finish. And here it is, right? As you notice, of course, that it doesn't really make the workflow for you. You're designing the actual, or you're modeling the workflow in Visio, and over here is where you're configuring the workflow afterwards, right? This is where you're going to see the comments from the business analyst, the business manager, or maybe you, if you were the one who did it, and then follow those things to make the actual workflow, to configure it appropriately. Email employees manager. How do you find a person's manager? Where does it exist? We already said that before. Where does the manager information exist for the employee? Well, that's not what I said before, but that was the answer. You gave my thunder, took my thunder away. Like, oh, that's right, isn't it? That's where we need to go right now, but Active Directory is where all the information is, right? User profile service is where our workflow has access to. Our workflow has access to the user profile service to go there, to get the information from there because it is coming from Active Directory if it's configured properly. It could be coming from other sources too. So email certain users. I'm going to click on these users, click on the address book for the to text box, do a lookup, add. There is a data source which exists in SharePoint Designer, workflows, and it's called user profiles. Now, which field in user profiles? Do we need that person's account name, assistant, birthday, department? Well, no, we're looking for the manager. What do you want to return the manager field as? I want to return the email address because that's what we want to do. We want to email that person. Perfect. Now, how do you find which user profile you're after? Well, you have to take the information that's been provided in the form. The form that was filled out, the person gave their name, the person gave their email address, all that information. So you have that personal information that you can take, and then you can send through this to the workflow and bring back the appropriate manager. So in our case, when you go and say field, it only gives you one option because it needs the account name of the person to be able to bring back this information from the user profile database. All right, let's find that. FX is the lookup. So now you're doing a lookup from a lookup, basically. Account ID. If you remember account ID, just to refresh your memory, it's right here. Okay, and we mentioned, when we did the property promotion to push the information out, we took this as one of the things that we promoted, that we made into column. That was necessary to be able to do this next step right now. If I hadn't done it, then I would have to resort to something that I already built before. But thankfully I did do it. Okay. Current item, account ID is what I need. So now, how many people are familiar with this lookup window? Okay, a few of you. All right, let me just quickly summarize how I look at this thing. You know, if you have a little bit of a SQL background or an Access background, you're used to doing select statements. You select this from that, where something is something. This is the way I look at it. Select manager from user profiles, where account name is equal to account ID. Simple, like that. Select manager from user profiles where account name is equal to account ID. And when you think about it that way, things make a little bit more sense. Okay, when I say okay, it's going to say, okay, that's what I'm going to bring back. That's fine, that's fine. Subject now is going to be new user entering your team. Now I want to pick the person's name, so I'll do a lookup here. And the current item always refers to the form. So in the form, I'm going to find the display name of the person, put that in the email address or in the email body, and say that this person is joining your team. We're, of course, talking to the manager in this case. Done. That's a simple thing right here. All right. Yeah.
Could you have done a lookup at the title as well?
Could I have done once again?
In the title of the email, rather than typing new user.
Oh, yeah. So in the title, you mean subject?
Yes, I mean subject.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. You can do a FX over here. Absolutely. Good question. You could put that in there like that if you wanted to. Or if you wanted a static value and a dynamic value both in here, you do this ellipsis, which gives you a string builder. And within that, you do a lookup. First, you do display name. After display name, then you say this person is joining your team. So now, without even opening the email, they see the text right there. You could definitely do that. Now, I have some bad news for you guys. Exchange is very, very, very heavy, and it brings down my demos if I have it installed and turned on. So I don't have it installed over here. So what I'm going to do is not show you the actual email. You just have to trust me on that. I'm going to give a log statement here, which is going to have the same exact stuff in there. So log this message, and the message is going to be, we'll just say users, managers, this, whatever. So, you know, the main thing that I wanted to prove with that email was that we can pull the manager's name, right? So that's what I'm going to show you over here in the log statement. Add or change lookup, we'll do the same thing. Let's see if I could do it faster this time. User profiles, manager, bring back. Now, in this case, I could even bring back display name because that's what we want to show. Account name, fx equals account ID. Yeah, so same deal, but now I'm bringing back display name in this case, just to show you the user's manager. Okay, so that's done. Next thing, check if department is IT. Field, department. You know where that's coming from, right? Okay, that's also the form. Value. In this case, I need to put it in. I don't have a lookup, so I'll just put that in there. Information technology. Assign a to-do item. To-do item here is going to be issue IT equipment. And we're assigning it to the resource manager. Where do you get the resource manager for the IT department? Well, if you remember, we do have a resource managers list. We used that before to modify the form and all that for this thing using InfoPath, but this is what we're after right now, the resource manager. Okay, we gotta get this from this list. Evolutions, okay, assign issue IT equipment to, we'll do a lookup. We're going after the resource managers list, which is right here. And we're going specifically for the resource manager, which is right there, right? Bringing back as string, that's fine. Now, so we want to get that resource manager person back. Now, is that what we want to do? No, actually, we want to bring back login name. You know why, right? Because we're assigning a task. If we're assigning a task, we want to bring back either login name or email address, so it could be assigned properly. Otherwise, string won't do it. We'll bring back login name. Field, this is a little bit harder part right here. So how do you find, department. And if you remember, once again, each one has a unique department. So in here I'll say information technology. Information technology. Okay, that looks good, I think. Now, this is pretty important. It says always when you do something like that, a lookup that is based on textual values and all, that you know what? This lookup that you have defined is not guaranteed to bring back a single value. What if you have two information technology departments? Shouldn't happen in our case, but what if you did? And you two different resource managers? It's saying that I'm going to bring back the first value that is returned. Okay, because that's the only thing that you can do right now. This is not a drop-down list that I'm populating. This is not a list box that I'm populating. I'm just populating one specific task item, and it's assigned to one person. So in this case, I'm just going to take my chance and say, yep, that's what I want. Okay, done. So once this resource manager gets assigned this task, they will go and say, yes, I've completed it. Once they've actually completed the task by giving the laptop and desktop, whatever, to the person, then automatically we want a new item in the asset list to be created. What is the asset list, you might ask? Okay. Once again, just to save a little bit of time, I made the asset list in advance, but all it is, the title column is still not required. I just don't like using title column because you can't change the internal name for title column. The asset, employee, and department. Each of these are single line of text. That's all it is. Prove that to you also. List settings, single line of text, right? And this one is not required anymore. Why do we need this thing? Because we have decided that we're going to keep all the different assets that we are giving out to people here. The asset name, the employee name, and the department that they belong to. So now our workflow needs to put information here. What we're going to do that is by going here and saying we want to push desktop here. Okay, that's fine. Create item in this list. List being assets. Now it's saying which field do you want to populate and what do you want to populate it with within assets, right? So add. The first thing is going to be the asset itself. That's the easy part because we know that we want to give that person a desktop. So we'll put that in there. Second field that we want to populate in this list is going to be the department field. The department field is going to be fetched from the library, right? Because the library has information that's coming in from the form. So we'll click on the FX, which is lookup current item, go to department, that is correct, and get information from there. Done. Third thing we want, and that's going to be employee. Once again, that's coming in from the form into the library. And this is being displayed over there as display name. That's what we want to grab. All right. It always has to create an output variable, even though if you don't use this, I'm just going to go ahead and say create a new variable. Yeah. That's okay. I'll just use the same one. I'm not going to use this variable, so I'm just going to use the same one everywhere. Create item in this list. Once again, asset list. Now, this becomes a pretty repetitive process, and you're going to wonder that is Asif going to do this for every single one? That's a lot of resources, lots of departments. I'm not. Well, at least not here, because I've already done it before. So asset is going to be laptop here. And then add employee. And that's going to be display name. Okay. So far, so good? Any questions? Yes?
Could you have the employee name as a first field instead of a normal?
Can you have the employee name as the person field as opposed? Table that I'm inserting to. Oh, okay. Over there. With this functionality, I don't believe you can, unless, well, it's going to try to insert it. If it finds that person, the exact match, then it's going to take the picker, the group person name picker is going to take it. If not, then it's going to throw an error. That's the only thing. Okay, so I'm okay with that. Output to create, once again, I'm just using the asset variable. You know, the question here becomes, you got good stuff that's happening here, and that's great, but you have to repeat this thing for every department. in my fictional company, I don't have that many departments, thankfully. I have, how many do I have here? IT, R&D, engineering, tool design, purchasing, document control. Okay, so I still have, what, 6 different departments, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many departments are in your company? Right, and it seems like sometimes that every new department gets created every year, and sometimes departments get shifted under, well, IT is reporting to finance now, and reporting to CIO directly, like, what's going on? So how do you do this in the workflow? That's been one of the major complaints, I think, of this workflow as to, you can't, what can't you do in this one? If you want to repeat the same stuff, you can't reuse this stuff. I can't say that I just want to copy all this stuff and put it down here and then configure all that stuff. I can't do that, right? You can't do this in SharePoint Designer 2013. You can copy the whole block. You can copy individual ones. You can copy even from site to site or list to list. You can do all that good stuff, which I do have a pre-built demo that I'm going to play at the end if I have time to show you how that happens. Yes? Wouldn't that be awesome if you could use a SharePoint Designer 2013 client to work on SharePoint 2010? You can, but with the exact same functionality. So SharePoint Designer 2013 will let you make or customize SharePoint 2013 workflows, which are running in a workflow manager, separate thing altogether, or SharePoint 2010 workflows, which are running in the SharePoint process. Once you get to SharePoint process, oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I misstated that. I'm gonna have some water and state it again, so I don't mess up again. Okay, let me revise that again. This is something that you have to understand very clearly, otherwise you're going to say, hey, Asif said it works and it's not working. Okay, if you have SharePoint 2010 on the server and you want to copy statements for SharePoint 2010 workflow, you can't. Sorry. If you have SharePoint 2013 and you have migrated your workflows now, the SharePoint 2010 workflows, and then you want to modify the SharePoint 2010 workflows using SharePoint Designer 2013, it will let you modify the SharePoint 2010 workflows running in SharePoint 2013, and it will let you copy statements and do copy stuff like that. That you can do. But if you're running SharePoint Server 2010 on the server, then you cannot. Then you cannot do copy and all that stuff. Okay. Yeah, so this is a little complex, the way the story goes. In 2013, you can do a lot of good stuff. 2010, you can't still. So, you know, this conundrum I had a long time ago, I'm like, you know, thinking there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a simpler way for me to at least kind of fake the copy, right? Kind of fake some of that stuff. And you can. You know how? Make it reusable? Well, reusable workflow will let me reuse this workflow again and again, which is good. But what I really want to do is take the same exact thing and put it here, same block basically, or maybe have this thing, right? Department is equals human resources right there. And then if department equals purchasing right there. How do I take these statements and then just put it right here somewhere? That's my conundrum, yeah. Oh, yes, you have all the answers today, awesome. Congratulations. Yes. So here's what we're going to do. First, maybe I should just go ahead and name something as well, more meaningful. Asset assignment. Let's do that. So I'm going to, first of all, go ahead and save this thing here. Export to Visio. That's correct. Now, I will call it the same one as before, because I'm just going back to the same workflow, right? Let's see what it does with that. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do want to replace it. Okay. Back in Visio, I want to import a workflow, and it will just import a new design. That's fine. Evolutions, open, and here you go. So it looks a little bit different. Can you see? Yeah. Employees manager, log to history list, check if department is IT, assign resources to deploy. So all my comments that I made before are still there. This one I did make a comment. You know why? Because I made this object in SharePoint Designer, right? So I'll go ahead and make the comment right now. Log the email. Oh, I'm sorry, log the manager's name. That's what we're doing. Your question at this point should be that if you modify stuff in here and then export it back to SharePoint Designer, what about all the configuration that took place? You can't configure them here, but what about all that configuration that you did in SharePoint Designer? Won't that go away? The answer is no, they won't go away. They're still there. They'll still be they remain. You just cannot configure those things here. In 2013, you can configure the actual model. You can configure a lot of these objects, but in 2010, you cannot. Okay, So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and here's what I want to do. I need this thing, this thing, this. I need all these things, again, for a different department, right? So take that and copy it. And this requires some finesse at times, so I might not be very successful. We'll see how successful I am this time. It works better if you have a bigger surface as well. I just have a 1024 by 768 screen, and it's kind of hard to do that in here, but I'll try. Okay, so here we go. I copied that here. It's good. All right, so let's look at the connections over here. This is an orphan connection. Let's delete that. So after logging the manager's name, I need, actually, yeah, right here, there should be another connection that goes like that, right? And from here, it goes, so that's incorrect. That's not right. So pointer tool, take this out, take this one out, connector, connect this one here, and connect this one here. This requires a little bit more patience usually, and I like to do this on my own alone time, but I'm doing this in front of you guys, taking a chance this time. So it may or may not work, we'll see. Process, check diagram, oh my God. Okay. Connector must be connected to two workflow shapes. Which one is that? Oh yeah, that's pretty odd. That it never does before. Delete. Wow, it disconnected the whole thing. Connector. Okay, how about now? Oh, look at that. So that one was producing all the other errors too. Which one does this say? Okay. This one must have a yes or no, of course, yeah. So this one would be no or yes? No, yeah. Right click on this one and say no. That's the no branch, right? Just like this one is a no branch, and this one is the yes branch. I don't know if you can see that clearly. Yeah? That's the yes branch going here, the no branch going there. Makes sense. Now, of course, the next thing that you want to do, assign, create a new asset item. Okay, first actually here, if department is IT, which is not, in this case, it's going to be, we're going to be looking for HR. Oh, whatever. I think there's a space or not in between. Create new item, asset item, and HR people are going to get a HR manual. And they're also going to get a laptop, that's fine. So process, check diagram, once again, it's good. Export. Now in export, what I'm going to do is export directly to that same file, right? Save. It says, I understand it's the same workflow. Do you want to update information in this workflow? Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. Wonderful. Back in SharePoint Designer, one catch over here, you need to have this particular one that you made before and exported closed. Once you have it closed, you go import from Visio, same file, cevolutions.vwi, and next, aha, a version of this workflow already exists on the site. So this also recognizes that that file specifically is coming back now. Finish, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to update it. Now look at that. All right, so same deal now. You do if department equals HR, blah, 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 blah. So I don't want to waste too much of your time here, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. Otherwise, it'll take us another 30 minutes to do it. But that's one of the ways that you can go ahead and copy statements, kind of fake it in 2010. People ask me, hey, I'm in 2010 and I'm staying in 2010. That's what our company is. So what do I have? What can I do? I know you can do all this stuff in 2013, but what can I do now? That's what you can do. Okay? So at this point in time, because I don't have the time to make all this stuff, I'm going to switch to another environment, which is also running. And this is where everything is done for the workflow. So this is what it looks like right here. Okay. IT, human resources, purchasing. Let me check for errors. Looking good. This is a different site, Live 360. And I've already published it. Publishing, of course, just click on publish and it publishes it. And I've also done one more thing over here. In workflow settings, I've clicked on the show workflow visualization. and I've said start workflow automatically when an item is created. Okay, I've done these things, nothing else. When I take you to this Live 360 site over here and go to onboarding forms, there's a bunch of forms already completed, a bunch of stuff already done. So this is reality. That's what happens once you've done all these things. Once you complete a form, it actually goes ahead and this is the workflow. It kicks off the workflow in progress and completed. Let me make a new form here, new document, onboarding form. Excuse me. And instead of me, I'm going to go ahead and pick a different person. We'll just pick one at random. Hopefully that person has a manager. Scott B at contoso.com. And the person is Alan Stein. Oh, you know what? We're using this person also as a resource manager. We'll use a different person. Sanjay Patel, okay. Sanjay P, organization is, okay, that's somebody else. Manager, Sanjay P. Onboarding form. I'm in the correct site. Let's type in Sanjay. So I can change this, of course. I don't have to keep the same one. This one, I believe. Region, we'll do South. Purchasing, today's date is this, start date. So same exact way, the other one is configured, this one is configured as well. Sanjay, and I know where the @ sign is now, that's good. It was on top of the 2 in this case, which is weird. Submit. Here we go, Sanjay Patel, purchasing. And here we go. The workflow is going. Now, because I've done workflow visualization, that checkbox, here's another thing that it does. This is also using Visio services. Automatically using Visio services, because I have that running, it tells me which branch it has taken. In this case is purchasing equipment and what's going on right now. This is Silverlight, but if you don't have Silverlight running, still it works just as well, as long as you have Visio services, which requires what licensing? SharePoint Server Enterprise. That's why in the beginning, my first slide, I mentioned that you need SharePoint Server Enterprise for this stuff to work. So issue purchase equipment is where this is right now. Somebody has been assigned the task, and that person is Gina Boyer. So that's the, who is that person? That's the resource manager, not the manager of the person, but the resource manager. The manager of the person should be here. Here we go. Stan Orme, emailed manager, and that's the person. Issue purchase equipment. I'll just go ahead and complete this task for this person, because I can in this case. And now it goes and says, all right, you've done it, everything is good. And it's completed, right? Once again, the emails don't work properly, but it does. And there's additional things that I've done also in this workflow. So there's email text going out. Congratulations on joining the team, purchasing team. You should be receiving your purchasing manual and laptop. Some additional stuff that I've done in this workflow. So your workflow is running magically in here. Everything is happening. That's great. What's happening in the assets list? This is also collecting all this information. Purchasing manual given to Ben. Purchasing manual given to Asif. Laptop also given to Asif. HR resources manual given to Chris. Purchasing department, etc. Right? It'd be awesome if I could somehow also make some cool visualizations of this thing. Some reporting. And that's going to be my last thing. This time is going by so fast. Unbelievable. It's 11 already? Or 5 a.m.? Whichever. So anyway, here's what I want to do. I want to report on this thing, and it would be really cool if I could group some things together, maybe group by department. That's one option. Second option is I can just show the person's name and not show the department, but show the asset. Or, wouldn't it be really cool if I show the person and show the asset as a picture? Right? Let's do that. So here's how we're going to do this. SharePoint Designer, 360 site, lists and libraries. By the way, I'm so sorry. I did skip over one more thing that I wanted to show you guys. Let's put this on the rocks a little bit just for a minute. In the team member onboarding workflow, there are these things which are called workflow forms that get created automatically, right? If you want to change your workflow form using InfoPath once again, you just click on the form. It opens up. soon enough, and it shows you what it looks like. Now I've already modified, no, not this one, sorry, it's going to come up. So when it does come up, you can take that form, modify it as whatever you want. You can make data connections, pull information in. Right here, if you wanted to, you can change the buttons, you can change the text, you can change shading, whatever you want to do, you can change, right? Easily. And all you got to do after you're done is go to File, go to Quick Publish, and it will go back and quickly publish this form. Now this form, if you're wondering where does this form appear in the process, that's okay, wrong one. Live 360, onboarding forms. When I went into the workflow and I clicked on this task, it brought up this form, this beautiful looking, no, not really, this form, this regular templated form. If you wanted to change that, that's how you do it over there. You just go ahead and open an info path. Once again, licensing wise, you need info path designer on your machine, and you need SharePoint Server Enterprise running on your server. Actually, you know what, that's not true. It's a little bit complicated story over here. I'm not sure exactly what Microsoft, why they did this, but for this one, you don't have to have SharePoint Server Enterprise. You can get away with SharePoint Server Standard. Okay, so, which not many companies have. Is either they have Foundation or Enterprise. Not many have Standard, but some do, that I know of. Anyway, but you can get away with showing this on Standard. It works. Workflow forms are the only ones that work on Standard. The list forms and library forms require Enterprise. Alrighty. Going on forward, so what I was going to start doing is, in the list and libraries, the assets list, I've already made a couple of different asset views, but I'm going to go ahead and make a new view again for you guys. New view, and that's going to be called Asset Pictures. It will start me up with the, it's okay, it's okay. I can't lie and say that SharePoint Designer 2010 does not crash. It does. But SharePoint Designer 2007 was horrible in terms of crashing. So this is a huge improvement. So it is much, 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 much better for sure. All right, Live 360 once again, list and libraries, assets list. It made this new view for me, asset pictures. I'm going to go inside of it. And we will be using conditional formatting in this case. So now we're actually doing the poor man kind of reporting using the, because our target audience once again is a site owner or a site collection administrator, and they don't necessarily have access to reporting services or other tools which would be awesome enterprise way of reporting on things. They only have access, let's say, to the browser or SharePoint Designer. That's about it. So I want to, what do I want to do? As I said before, there's a few different things that I can do. Let me go ahead and do a sort and group and say that I want to sort on, or actually group on department, right? It's my department. Oh, here we go. I called it DEPT instead of the whole thing. Department, show group header, that's correct. So that's good, nice. No need for department anymore in this case, so I'll say add remove columns and remove department, yeah? Now the next thing, as I promised over here, is I want to show the person and then I want to show the asset that that person has. Let me flip this thing, move up, person and then asset. So maybe right here is where I want to show the asset. This might take me a few minutes. Let's see how we go. Insert, picture, desktop. So I have some of these pictures that are here, desktop. Great. It's going to be a huge picture, of course. It's all right. We'll go into this, go to format, go here, and bam, make it smaller. Maybe even smaller than that. Maybe 150. And 150 here. Okay? So just the rendering of it changes when you do that. That's going to be okay, I think. Go here, insert a new picture, and this picture this time is going to be HR manual. We'll just say HR for alternate text. Once again, change the width and the height to be the same as the other one. Okay, another one is going to be laptop. If I spell it correctly, here we go, laptop. And where do you think all these pictures are going to go, by the way? Are they going to stay on this form, or are they going to stay in the data view, or where do the pictures go? Site assets library, that's where the pictures go. Purchasing manual. Purchasing manual. Instruction manual. Okay, sorry, I couldn't find the right picture for that one. So it's instruction manual instead of purchasing manual, which has purchasing information in there, of course. We will assume. All right, so now I'm going to click on this first one and then use conditional formatting. Options, conditional formatting, show content when asset equals, this I have to be careful about because the spelling and everything else does count, of course. Desktop, that I know, it's an easy one. Desktop, good. Okay, so that's gone because it's HR Resources Manual, right, which is this guy. Conditional formatting, show content, asset equals HR Resources Manual, and this should stay. It did, great. Laptop, conditional formatting, show content when asset equals laptop. Okay, great. And this one, you know what? I did mess up, I think. Laptop is because it's all XML at play over here, capitalization does count as well. And then the last one here, instruction manual, options, conditional formatting, show content. And this one is going to be asset once again. And then this one is, I need to check this to make sure. 360 resource no, this is different assets, right? Here we go, purchasing manual. Okay. So, purchasing manual. All right, so if I did not mess up and if I did everything right, it should work well. Save. Ooh, we should be saving everything. Oh, I think it already has some of the other stuff in there. All right, we'll see. Okay, I think it's not showing some of the stuff here. I might have to mess with the code a little bit. We'll see. Assets, assets, all items, asset pictures. And yeah, so it's got some broken stuff over here. And this happens when it doesn't know exactly where to get the picture from. So I made it properly, but I've noticed this actually is a bug a little bit. I have to go into the code a little bit, see exactly where it's getting the picture from, and then manipulate that there. I'll show you how you can do that too. But it is working fine the way I intended it to, aside from it not showing the pictures properly. There's the purchasing manual, laptop, purchasing, laptop, stuff. In fact, I made another one just for that purpose. I knew this thing could happen, of course. Here you go. This is the working one. Right, all the different departments, exactly which person has what. And you can even make that asset stuff disappear. You don't have to show the actual wording of the asset. You can just show the actual pictures. You know, you can go back to here and say, you know what, I don't want to see the actual value. Let me go ahead and delete that. And even if you do that, this should keep the other thing working still. Asset tracking pictures. So here you go. Once again, some of these pictures are still broken, but you don't need to actually show the text. You know why, right? Because the actual wording, the actual text in this case, the asset name, still exists. It's in the data set that's being returned. You're just not displaying it anymore. It still can get to it, understand exactly which asset it is, and show the appropriate picture in this case. If you were curious as to how you can fix the situation, if you have the situation like that, you just go specifically into you go into split mode and see exactly where it's coming from and exactly what's referencing. And in my case, I'm pretty sure, yeah, there we go, see? File C, so it's trying to get it from my machine instead of getting it from the right place. I believe I should be able to quickly fix this one. So site assets, let's do this. Control C, Control V. So I'll just fix it, hopefully here, for the purchasing manual and see if that works. No, I'm not sure. No guarantees right now. I might have to debug this a little bit more, but we'll see. Wrong one. Assets. Refresh. Yeah, so it did fix it for the purchasing manual. Yeah? Yeah, that's a bug, unfortunately, that I had to deal with for many years now. So anyway, what do you think so far? Yeah? A lot of good stuff like this that you could do in SharePoint Designer and InfoPath. We talked about InfoPath list form, we talked about library form, we talked about workflow forms. In SharePoint Designer, we talked about workflow, which is pretty powerful. We talked about this view, which is called the list view web part. And you can go ahead and customize this view. Of course, the information in this one is all coming from a list, which is this list. But imagine getting information through a web service from a different data source. Imagine getting information from your database. And we've done all that stuff scenarios before. And then taking this information, joining things together, or merging the information in a combined view, and having conditional formatting at hand to do all these cool things. All that stuff is possible. All that stuff without using any code whatsoever, aside from, of course, when you have to fix the issue that you have to go with the code, which is a little bit unfortunate, unfortunately. But when you really have to do things like that, it's not as difficult. It's simple enough to be able to go into the code, see exactly where it's deployed, and do it. So that's the story in SharePoint 2010. Any questions? Yeah.
We use web part pages extensively, and we find that if we do conditional formatting in Designer, it doesn't stay with the view once we put it in web part page.
Really? When you say web part page, do you mean web part page specifically, or just any page? So there's web part pages, there's wiki pages, of course. So web part page is what you use. Now, web part pages were the only real team site pages until the last 2007 version, right? In 2010, Microsoft decided to make wiki pages, which came from the wiki sites, into the team site pages. I've been using that for many, many years, I mean, 2007 and earlier, and it has not given me that issue. So I'm not sure about this issue specifically, but we could talk afterwards and see if there's something that clicks in my mind about that. Okay, so a bunch of things we talked about here. Onboarding workflow we talked about. This was the workflow. Once again, one of the really good things about having a visual diagram of that is you can print it out easily. You can go ahead and use it as documentation. Take that, copy and paste it into Word or something like that. It helps quite a bit. Okay, and then we talked about the asset list. I did the reporting on assets, which was a simple reporting, of course, using data view or list view web part in this case. But you could go a lot further with reporting services, even with Dashboard Designer, making a dashboard out of the asset list, or using, I don't know if anybody used chart web part before. That's also a very good way to take the chart web part, connect to a list or a library, in our case a list, and then go ahead and manipulate that from there. Okay? Now I do have this